Welcome to another exciting edition of Social Sessions. Today I'm thrilled to have a special guest with us, none other than Andy Henderson, the driving force behind the success of the beloved indie rock band the Dykeenies. Their breakthrough came in 2007 with their electrifying debut album Nothing Means Everything, and Andy's here to share the inside scoop on that incredible journey. We'll be diving into the highs and the lows of life on the road, exploring the fascinating world of the music industry, and having a candid chat about how success can shape your perspective and handle the pressures that come with it. Get ready for an intimate conversation with Andy as we unravel the story behind the music. Without further ado, a warm welcome to Andy Henderson. How you doing, Andy?
I'm great, mate.
All good.
Hi,
really good to have you here. So I'm just going to kind of, what do they always kind of just take people back to their childhood, how it was, kind of how, so obviously we come from the same area. So what was it like for you growing up in Cumbernauld, Andy?
Brilliant, to be honest with you, mate. I came from, originally Drumchapel's where our family came from.
Aye.
Moved to Cumbernauld, I think I was like 5, going on 6, just starting primary school. So life in Cumbernauld a lot different from life in Drumchapel. We were always back at Drumchapel because that's where my real dad came from and all our family was still there. So it's a big culture shock for Drumchapel to Cumbernauld. Cumbernaulds quite posh compared to Drumchapel. But I like Cumbernauld. I still like Cumbernauld.
So growing up in school and all that, I mean, obviously when we were growing up, it was all kind of different areas and stuff like that. And we were kind of from different areas, didn't really go on. I was going with you anyway, Andy. We were always good pals. But were you ever involved in that kind of scene? Like, were you ever involved growing up in that kind of scene?
Aye, I would say in my teenage years, I kind of got a wee bit lost, probably between the age of like 13 to maybe 17, hanging about with the rank crowd. I mean, happens to a lot of young men. But I mean, done a few years, probably up to no good, causing my parents a lot of hassle. But it wasn't really me.
Aye.
And I knew at the time I was faking it. I wasn't a bad guy. I wasn't a bad kid. I was just trying to fit in with other people and you get led astray a wee bit. But it never really lasted too long for me.
It's really easy to get, and it's been like something that we speak about often on here is like how young people have got it hard and grown up, especially in this day and age where you've got the pressures. And I think COVID, we had like Karen McCluskey on here. I don't know if you know Karen, but Karen was head of the violence reduction unit. And we were just talking about the kind of creeping into the gangs and that and stuff again. And we were just talking about how young people are kind of isolated now, maybe austerity. What do you think of that? And did you think there's anything like back in Cumbernauld? I know you're not there now, but can you see anything like that kind of creeping back in? I know you've got kids yourself, and
it's hard for me to comment on that. I can only comment on what I experienced in my teenage years, and I think maybe then for somebody like myself, it would have just been like, you want to be accepted.
Aye.
And if you've got your wee gang of your pals, your mates, and they accept you into it, that's probably how you end up in that scenario. And I don't know if it's any harder now than it was back then for us. Times are different, obviously. I don't know, but I could imagine that is true.
Oh no, there's definitely a rise. I mean, the stats are there to tell us that there's a rise in crime and all that. Do you know what I mean? But so your saving grace was music, and obviously you're going to need to take me on the journey here because I'm not really. I was a kind of dance guy. I was more like up parts on a Friday night. So you're going to need to kind of guide me. So when did music come in your life? Did you do music at school and stuff like that?
Aye, music in school. My whole family loved music. It probably comes to my mum and dad.
Aye.
Basically, parties at the weekend in the house or Christmas, everything was just heavily music, always music. And they bought me a guitar randomly for my Christmas one year, a kind of Spanish acoustic style guitar. And the same year they bought me the Double White album with the Beatles. And I was in primary school, so I was relatively young for that type of music.
Aye.
But I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the guitar. Brian was a great singer for a young age.
That is amazing.
He was always singing. Through even primary school when you do you're in the gym hall and everybody's singing the hymns and everything else. Brian was up on his knees and the veins were bulging in his neck and he was singing his heart out. He loved it. So we probably didn't realise at the time, but we were all quite musical. And then my older brother Alan, when I had got that guitar, he excelled. He became so much better on the guitar than I did. He got his own guitar. And then we were just musical from then on. We were just always in bands and always playing. And there was just always something going on.
Because we talk about, obviously, on here, how different things change people and how different things like take you on a different path than maybe what the path you could go down, because we know boys, Andy, we all know boys that haven't done the wrong path, and stuff happened to me and I went away for a long time through whatever, bad choices, whatever you want to make it, do you know what I mean? And even though there's elements of stuff that to do with my trial it was still bad choices, there was still stuff that I could have done differently. So obviously, like with you, with music and stuff, how did you make that kind of leap for going like hanging about the streets drinking Buckfast stuff? Like how did you make that kind of change into a musical person? How was that? Was it hard, or did you ever think to yourself, what am I doing here? Or
I think it was probably relatively easy for me and my two brothers because everything worked perfect at the time, right? And what I mean by that is we met John Kerr, the drummer for the band, for a very young age. He stayed in Greenfields where we came from. So we were pals before we were in a band. We all grew up together, we were all mates. And it just turned out that John was one of the best drummers in the entire world. So music for us, getting into the studio and taking us off the street, it just kind of happened. There wasn't a big decision about it or anything like that. We just all started being in bands, and then you're in high school, you're learning, you're in music, so you meet other guys that are in bands, and then it just becomes your environment. So you're in the studio when other guys are out drinking. Even when it came to like the Dykeenie days, like what people don't see is the hard work and the years before that's went into that product. People think, oh, the Dykeenies got success relatively quick. That's only what they've seen. The years of graft before that, the years of rubbish bands, terrible songs, terrible gigs. We were gigging in Glasgow and bars and stuff like that. We were 12, 13 years old.
Aye. See, I never knew that. I always like...
Not as the Dykeenies, all in different bands. Like Brian and Alan were always in bands together, but I was never in a band with them. I was in my own bands. I was trying to make it as a singer in my own band and all that. Horrendous, mate. But that's when we were cutting our craft, basically. At a very young age.
Because it was all... I just feel as if, like, I remember you kind of hanging about the streets and seeing you sometimes, maybe for like 15, 16, and I didn't know you like really well, but I knew you like to say hello and whatever. And then I just feel as if I seen you one day and you looked like a guy at the band. It was like that for me, but obviously I didn't see the work that's going on, and I never knew you were in a band at 13. So does music, did you get a kind of discipline with music? Is there a discipline?
Definitely. I think if anybody that's got the patience to learn an instrument, they've got discipline. You know, it's like, it's the same with a martial art or an instrument or anything like that. Like, and I suppose there's probably so many other things are the same. But if they've got that patience to really master something, they've got discipline, definitely.
So with that kind of discipline, can anybody make it, Andy? If you put the graft in, or do some people say about Brian had that kind of magical thing about him? Is it sometimes is it the talent, or can you work hard and become?
I definitely think he's maybe like a guitar player or a bass player or a pianist or a drummer. You work hard enough, you will get to a level where you could probably play professional, right? But I think a frontman or a singer, there's just something else. You know, you need something about you. I don't know what it is, you know, like Brian, by being the singer of the Dykeenies, he's just a special guy. Even to this day, like, just living normal life. Like, Brian's a special guy, like.
No, I've got a lot of time for Brian, I really do. He's a lovely guy. You've actually got a lovely family together, Andy. But when did you realise personally, when did you go, do you know what, this is maybe something that we could do here, man, we could make this here? Well,
Brian and Alan were in another band called Iota for years, and they were good, they were a decent band, but they were just a bit cheesy and all that. They were just young. And then when the Dykeenies came about, I was never in the Dykeenies at first, so they were wanting to put this band together, and they had an idea. It was always going to be John Kerr and Brian and Alan, and they were struggling for a bass player. So I was like, I'll play bass, because this was always the excuse for them not to get the band together. I was like, I've not got a bass player, So I was like, I'll play bass. Don't know how to play bass. I'll learn, John, the drummer, I'll learn off him. So that's how it started. And then we got Stephen Ramsey in, who went to school with Brian, a great guitar player, and had the same mindset as us, just work hard, And like, that's basically how it started, like, that's how the band got together. We started rehearsing in the pub in Greenfields, which was John's auntie's pub.
Is that the Mallard?
The Mallard.
Mallard, aye.
So we would rehearse in the back room in the Mallard. And I knew we were good. We were a good band. We were playing covers and all that. But then we wrote Waiting for Go, which is one of our singles, very early on. And I knew then. And I wasn't a solidified member of the band yet. I was just the guy that was helping out, playing a bit of bass for them until they got a bass player. And once we wrote that song, I thought, I'm the bass player. I'm going nowhere. I'm going nowhere. Like, we're onto something here.
So, obviously, like, when was it like because obviously I know you were at Tea in the Park, we'll go into that kind of later on and stuff like that. So, when was your first kind of gig that you done that you went, do you know what? Like, this is, like, you could just feel it. Obviously, there must have been a feeling in the air that night.
Aye. Basically, we wrote a bunch of songs and we recorded them. We went to a half-decent recording studio. So we knew we had these good songs. We maybe had like 6 or 7 songs, enough to do a half-hour set anyway. So we thought, we'll do a gig, but we're not going to just do any gig. We're going to arrive on the scene. We're going to sort of manipulate this situation and make us bigger than we are.
Aye.
And we done that pretty well. Like, we sold out the 350 capacity room in the ABC without MD even hearing a demo.
Aye, I know, it's crazy.
And this was like before social networking was massive. Like, we only had like MySpace and stuff like that at first. We word of mouth, and we just kind of like bullshitted our way a wee bit into that first gig.
Aye.
And luckily enough for us, we pulled it off. And so that was our very first gig in the ABC in Glasgow, sold out. And we got a phone call before we went on stage to say, can you hold off your stage time an hour? Because the executive of Virgin has missed his flight, Virgin Records, to come and see you.
Right.
We had every record label at that gig that night.
Aye. So
first ever gig.
Aye. It must have been, was it like when you're playing football and you know the scouts are there?
Aye.
Was it like kind of like that? Was it that kind of feeling?
Brian was spewing up blood.
Was it?
Aye, because we had just rehearsed so hard that his voice, he'd fucked his throat, and he's like taking all sorts of like, I can't remember what it was, like codeine or whatever it was. He was taking at the time, and he had fucked his throat and he was spitting up blood and all that, and nerves were horrendous because, as I say, first gig.
You don't realise, because obviously you see your videos and stuff, and you probably with every band. I mean, I've actually heard people talking about people spewing and all that before they go out on stage, and it must be so nerve-wracking.
It's horrifying.
Have you ever had a crowd where it's no worked? Like when you've been like, oh, didn't go down too well. Have you ever had that, or have you always been lucky?
Oh, we've had some stinking gigs sometimes. Oh, definitely. I mean, you do like, you'll know this term, right? But when you first get signed, you do what's called a toilet tour. And it's basically shithole venues all over the UK. You go to every nook and cranny of the UK. You're in tour for about 2 months, right? We'd done some horrendous gigs in there where nobody was there.
Aye.
Right. So we were like, at this time, we were pretty big in Scotland, right? And then we ventured into England and nobody gave a fuck. Like, at that point, no one cared. So we'd done some bad gigs, definitely.
You were up against some real talent at that time. I mean, this is only other people telling me, but I wasn't there, Andy, but I heard a lot of people say you were a couple of years, even a year before or a couple of years before, you would have went huge. And was there an aspect to that kind of indie rock taking off at that point that maybe you were just in amongst a kind of convoluted kind of music industry?
I don't know, I wouldn't say that held us back, or maybe that stopped us from being bigger than we were, but see, at that point when we were coming out, and before that, and that time was electric for music. It was just like the best time to be about for.
Who was some of the bands that were running about that time? You had like Arctic Monkeys and...
Oh, aye. Well, just to put it in perspective for you, like, me and Brian went to a gig in the Barfly in Clyde Street in Glasgow. So it's like a 200 or 300 capacity venue. It's quite small downstairs. And we only went because a band that I followed for Glasgow called Kane, or Raising Kane, who was supporting a band there that night. And the band they were supporting was the Arctic Monkeys, right?
What's it?
So we phoned up on the day of the gig and got tickets to the Arctic Monkeys and the Barfly. So that paints a picture of how good the music scene was.
Aye. When they were actually like...
On a Wednesday night or something, Thursday night, I seen the Arctic Monkeys and the Barfly by accident because I was going to see a Glasgow band.
And that was by the time you were a wee bit better than them at that time. You would have been probably a wee bit more...
The Dykeenies would have been right at the very start. We weren't... I don't even know if we had done many gigs at that point. People knew who we were.
What age were you, Andy, when... Because I only remember bits and bobs, do you know what I mean? What age were you when kind of the Dykeenies formed? And what was your first label, the first label you signed for?
I think I was 21 or 22 when the band really took off. The first label we signed for was King Tut's Recordings. And then we went on to sign with a company called Lavota, which was like a kind of offshot of Sony Records. That's where the money, all the financing comes for Sony. But the very start, it was King Tut's Recordings.
And what was it like, obviously, playing in King Tut's and that? Because I've heard that some of the gigs in there are electric. Obviously, it was another place I didn't frequent, you know what I mean? I was usually at some sort of nightclub. But what was King Tut's like? Was that... Some people say that's some of the best nights I've had. That's even better than on kind of maybe Teen Apart and that. I've heard people saying that.
It's amazing, mate, because we what happened was we went to a competition on a Sunday afternoon called Your Sound in King Tut's. Not even knowing it was a competition. We just went because we knew there was this thing on for new bands. We took it, basically what it was is you took your demos along, all these other bands there, and then they played the demos on the screen, and I think at the end of it, they had kind of voted who was the best newcomer band or whatever, and I think it was something to do with getting a chance at playing Teen Apart, maybe, or something like that anyway. So we just went and got steaming, as we did all the time, fucking mortal drunk. And Dave McGeekin, who runs DF Concerts, runs King Tut's, came up to us at the table and says, right, you guys have won, you've won all this beer, and that's fucking last thing, we need more beer. You've won all this beer and all that. Well, who's your manager? I've not got a manager. Just these fucking arrogant guys that come along. We've not got a manager. And he's like, listen, come in and see me this week when you're sober, and I'll speak to you then. And we went in and seen Dave, and that's when things really started to take off for us. They looked after us big time. Sorted out our first ever gig in King Tut's, sold it with that, and it was just monumental. It's just memories. Some of my King Tut's memories are they'll be with me forever.
Well, obviously you'll know, I've been in King Tut's a couple of times, once or twice, and some of the names that you see on there that played there before they were big are massive. Can you tell us a couple of them? Because I know I can't name them, but I know I remember looking.
Legendary as the Oasis got signed there, didn't they? So they supported somebody in King Tut's.
Is that right? Is that where the Oasis get signed?
That's the most kind of famous story out there, everybody's played King Tut's. I mean, there a few years ago, the Killers, after they played the headline Transmit, went back to King Tut's and played at midnight at King Tut's.
Did they?
It's a legendary place.
Magical place,
definitely, mate. And I think that's what makes your gig so special, because you know the special nights it's went down in there, and then you're getting to play there.
So what? Obviously, sometimes we talk about the kind of darker side of things and the kind of harder side, and I know the music industry's kind of rife with kind of addiction, mental health problems, stuff like that. How does that come about? Because a lot of people would say, how can you say you've got mental health, you're gigging, doing this? How does that come about? Because obviously I can imagine you're away from your family, loads of different stuff.
Drugs was never really a thing that was prevalent in our band. People dabbled off every now and then and stuff like that, but nobody in the band was a regular drug user. That, surprisingly, nobody in the band was. Guy who smoked a bit of weed every now and then. That was quite common in tour because you were tired, you were trying to come down for gigs and stuff like that. Cocaine was never really an issue for anybody in the band. I don't know, we just weren't really into drugs all that big. I mean, I can tell you some funny stories about the times we did take drugs and made an arse of things. So, my first ever time, I didn't even know what MDMA was, and we were in tour and we played a festival called The Great Escape in Brighton. It's a massive festival, and the Cooks were headlining. They were playing in the pier. So they were having an after show party, and it was like the Queen's Hotel or something like that. We were all invited to go. So we went there, and our manager, Jenny, turned and said to me, "You want some MDMA?" And I'm like, "I don't know what
is that your manager or not?"
She's like, "Oh, it's like ecstasy, but it's like," and I'm like, "Aye, give me that." She's like, "Give it." So I went away with this bag, and I didn't know a clue what I was doing. Came back up, like half an hour later, I've pissed in front of everybody in the lobby because I was so disorientated, didn't know where the toilet was. So they phoned the police on me. I've pissed in the lobby. I've been walking about in this party, which is just basically all the famous bands that have played. And it was like wee cactus on the table, and I have to this cactus, and I'm hitting people with the cactus, putting spikes in their arm, just being a fucking pollution. And then I go, the police come and take me for there. I can't speak by this time. Take me back to my hotel because I've got a hotel card in my wallet. Phone our tour manager for the desk. He comes down and gets me, takes me back up to the room I'm sharing with my brother. My brother says, I go into the bathroom, and he says he can hear water going everywhere, and he's like, "What's going on?" Comes into the bathroom. I've got the toilet seat down, and I'm just peeing on the lid, just getting myself soaked. So that was my experience with drugs. So then I never really took them much after that, to be honest. But I did see with other bands. I mean, I could tell you some mad things. Like, we done a lot of touring with The View, and they were kind of like signed back to the same record label in an essence, basically, in a sense, like Sony. And they had this woman go on tour with them who basically distributed their drugs so that they weren't going to overdose. Like, we were in a hotel called the Key West in London, and everybody was partying, and like there's this lassie who works with the record company, and she's like biting pills in half to get the band.
To give them so
you
make sure.
Fucking like, mad, mate.
How is it to, obviously The View are a kind of legendary band and all, like, how was it touring with, because obviously they were a bit mad, weren't they? They were a bit kind of like...
we loved it, because like, we got on great with the boys for The View and had some good laughs, and I loved the band as well. They were great.
They're brilliant.
Like, such a good live band, which was overshadowed just by their antics off stage. Like, people forget how good The View actually were. And still are, basically, But, mate, some good times.
No, I know, I've heard obviously people talking, you see obviously the stories like with Pete Doherty, and you see all this, but I think Kyle for The View done a programme no long ago about mental health and addiction and stuff, and I know he's got his act together now, and he's got his wee family, and he's doing really well, and his story is the kind of stories that is it need to be told, and it's like the stories about how any kind of industry, I think that any kind of fame or any kind of stuff can just swallow you up. Do you know what I mean? It's so do you know, is there any stories like kind of that you know that were kind of never ended so well, like kind of bad stories where
you lose your grasp on reality being in a band, and you start to believe your own bullshit, because nothing's real, none of it's real. It can be taken away from you at any point, and it does. It happens to everybody. Happened to us. And you're not living in the real world anymore. You're living in this fucking false world that you've created in your mind that everybody else is holding it up because they're all hoping to make some money off you. And it's not real. And that's how the mental health thing does come into it. Because I remember we were supposed to be the next biggest thing. We were the Scottish Killers, we were on the front page of the paper. We were on NME, done the NME tour with the Fratellis and all that, right? We were like, we're supposed to be massive, and this is what they made us believe this. Made us believe how big we were going to be. And then it never happened. None of the songs charted. We never got the support after Radio 1. And I remember being in a hotel room in Sheffield, we were playing, and we just found out that, I think it was like Clean Up Your Eyes or something, had midweeked at like 20, 22 in the charts. And we were like, we basically knew if we never top 40 with that single, we were going to get dropped after. You kind of knew that was going to happen. Not straight away, but...
Is it Ruthless?
Aye.
Is it?
And we never charted. And I remember being in the hotel room, so depressed, so frustrated. You're just a young guy, like, your family's not there. You've only got the other young guys that's with you, your tour manager, and then you've got to go and play a gig that night, and you feel like a failure, and you feel like everything that you dreamt of was just going to disappear. And everything, you also, like, your parents and your family all expected so much for you, like, no, because not their fault, you know.
No,
they're hoping for big things for you as
aye.
well, you know, and then you feel like, fuck, man, this is crashing. Like, it's
So you
hard.
feel a wee bit like obviously you hear it a lot, like like what you're saying, just at any walk of life, I think. But the music thing is, I kind of dream into it. Like if you look at these things and if somebody's putting you up on a pedestal and then just pulling it away, I can imagine that would be heartbreaking. Do you know what I mean? It's like
definitely was heartbreaking.
Because I know, like, obviously you hear quite a lot. I don't know if, like, obviously, I don't know if you would agree, but similar kind of things with, like, people that go into Big Brother, and it's like there's a name for it. I don't know. It's like something like 10-minute fame or something like that. But these guys come out of Big Brother as well, and they're like massive for like a few months, and then they just die out. And you hear them guys killing themselves. Muggy Mike, remember Muggy Mike? I was ashamed, you know what I mean? And some of these things, so obviously I know, like, it's up to like how far you want to talk about it and stuff, but was there in your band, was there a lot of kind of mental health after that? Was there a lot of problems with mental health, not Andy?
Definitely. Probably even unrecognised at the time, the damage that it was doing to us. We didn't know. But I would say I definitely, and I know my young brother Brian had definitely been damaged by it. And you live with that for the rest of your life. Like, our lives were nowhere near normal for the best part of 10 years, and you put your heart and soul into something as well. For it, on the surface of things, at the time you feel like it's failed, but it's not failed, because you've made your albums.
Aye.
That's there forever.
And you've got a success.
Like, super, you know what I mean? Exactly. Aye. Like, you're measuring success through money and your fame then, which is wrong. But at the time, that's what you were, that's not what you were hoping for in terms of that's all you ever wanted in your band. But the bigger you are, the more money you make, the longer you get to be in your band and the longer you get to make music. Because ultimately when the money stops coming in and it becomes harder, and then you're grown up, you've got a family, it's not viable to be in the band 7 days a week anymore. You need a job and all that. So I definitely badly affects you, your mental health.
I suppose that you probably start living in a world where your kind of ego's inflated and you've got a kind of, as you say, it's a false sense of reality. And it's probably similar to like trauma in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you look up the definition of trauma, you could probably say that what you experience through that is pretty traumatizing. Do you know what I mean? Definitely. Because you're going through a process of being who you want to be and who you aspire to be, and then for it to get shut down. And you mentioned Radio 1, and we had a wee talk about this before, Annie. I didn't really know that, right? But obviously for like the viewers and stuff. So Radio 1 have got a lot of pull in on how well a band do. Basically,
when at that point, at that time when we were in the music industry, that's how it worked. Like Radio 1, if Radio 1 gave you the support and you got like a playlist on Radio 1, an A playlist, which basically meant you get played in every show during the day on Radio 1, that's how you make it. If you don't get the playlist on Radio 1, your band won't make it. You make it to a certain level and you'll maybe kind of survive, but you don't get that playlist, your band's dead.
And how do they obviously you probably won't, you might not know this, but I'll ask you anyway, like how do they choose? Do they choose on merit, or is it corrupt? Is it like is there things going on there at the background?
I mean, I do think there is an element of corruption involved in it, in terms of like they do choose who they want to promote and who they don't want to promote. Their reasoning, I don't really know. Like, you obviously get artists that are unbelievably good, that will just arrive in Radio 1, no matter how much they don't want to back them, they'll become big anyway. But that's basically how it works. That's
a kind of rarity, but like,
and to touch back on the mental health thing, like, being completely honest with you, the highs that you experience through being in the band or be playing live or recording your music, when that was all disappeared and you weren't hitting those anymore, like, you're looking for something else. Even subconsciously, you don't really know that's happening to you, but you're looking for something else to hit that. You're drinking, I was heavily drank when the band finished. Every night of the week I would drink easy. You were used to it on tour.
I know, aye.
But then I was hitting it hard when I came home, drinking them all in. Not a very good sign. I ended up addicted to painkillers, prescription medication. I ended up taking an accidental overdose. That was all on the back of the band.
Aye.
I was either looking for something to numb the pain of the band failing, or I was trying to find new things to make me high, give me a high again, you know, like
Fill that void.
Fill the void. That's exactly it. Things I don't really speak about openly to many people is I did have like I went through periods where I was addicted to gambling, which that was for years, and it got worse and worse and worse until it was addressed. But it all stemmed for that one thing. It all stems for that. Like,
it seems as though obviously it's similar. I mean, obviously it's two completely different things. But when I'm in prison, I can't knock somebody for taking drugs to escape for that reality. And I know it's different. It's totally different. But if you take it right down to the root, it's probably very similar in the way that in prison you're trying to escape your reality, but what you're doing as well is trying to escape the reality of no becoming that thing. And it's probably, you'll know yourself, Andy, is that quite prevalent then in the music scene, like for people that don't make it to have poor mental health? Like
definitely.
Aye.
Definitely. Aye. Probably the same as people that have made it as well. Like most artistic people are probably quite vulnerable mentally.
Aye.
Their mental health in the first place, and then it's monetized into it after that. Like people just, it's full of vultures, the music industry. Like if we're talking, say, the people that signed us to their record label, and we were the best thing ever to them for until it wasn't working anymore. And then do you know how we found out we'd been dropped, basically? And we weren't even dropped, we were just told that they weren't financing a second record. I mean, this is like Sony, one of the biggest companies, record companies ever in the world, mate. And we got a phone call. It wasn't even for them, it was to our manager. No one spoke to us individually. Just got a phone call, that's it. Drop you like that.
And were these the same people that were pumping you up and telling you?
Aye.
So there's as you say, is like that's similar to, I mean, that's exploitation then, isn't it? You're kind of talking about, like, you could go into, I mean, obviously we all know that you go into these things and you need to have a kind of level head, but if you're taking a group of young boys, putting them up there, Sony, everybody knows who Sony records are, it's like huge. How do you know buy into that? Exactly.
They've got, I mean, they should have some sort of obligation to try and protect you and look after you, but they don't care.
So there's nothing in the contract to say, like, if you fall down mentally, like say you're at work and you have your work will kind of look at nothing, music industry.
No, I mean,
they couldn't care
all
less.
They'd be interested in is keeping you performing, keeping you playing, and keeping you writing. Even like, so when we got dropped for the record label, as much as it seemed at that point it was going to be the end for us and how heartbreaking it was, things actually took off for us after that anyway. Aye. So we did the first album. It never sold the way they expected it to sell. We got, they weren't going to finance a second album, right? But we were still technically signed because we'd signed maybe a 5-album deal or something like that. So technically you're still signed to them, but they're not going to give you the money for your next album. But if you make another album, you're still liable to pay them the percentage, right?
Oh, so you're joking.
You know these things, it's the record labels.
I've seen it with rappers and that, but is it similar then? Is it like, I've seen it?
We went to Texas for a festival called South by Southwest. Massive music festival, like in the industry, it's like the biggest thing. So we went over there, played that. Someone seen us from a company called 21st Artist, which is Elton John's management company. So they wanted to sign the band. This is after we'd been dropped. So they wanted to sign the band to the management company, came back. Fast forward a wee bit after that, we're signed to Elton John's management company. He loves us. We're away down in London recording in his studio, recording demos for the second album. He's footing the bill for everything. Like, putting us up. We had like 2 flats in Kensington. The band are staying.
Did you get to meet Elton John? Aye.
So they're amazing, but we're still signed to Sony. So they're fighting a legal battle with Sony to get us out this deal. Because they know that if we release any music, Sony are just going to take all the money. But they're not even doing anything for the band. So we had to sit on all the music we were writing. We couldn't release anything. We could still tour, but so that I can't remember how many years it was, but we went years with it releasing any new music.
That's horrifying.
So that's obviously detrimental to the band's career as well, because you need to be fresh, you need to be new music coming out.
And obviously, as you say, it's like for you, how you obviously need to go back to work and stuff like that, and like because you're
not at that point. The band was we were doing live. We were a big live band. We were doing good live shows. We were making enough money that at that time could keep us alive. Basically, I mean, we weren't really making a lot of money in terms of like a wage that we'd make now, but whatever. When you went on tour, you get looked after anyway, so we were fine for money. And then we recorded the second album and we released it basically independently, and it done pretty good. And we done another tour off the back of that, another good few tours off the back of that, big tours. And that's the money was coming in for the big tours, so it was keeping the band alive. You know, the band was still, even though you've got to ask yourself, man, like,
obviously this is your dreams, right? And Sony have already got, like, what do they need it for?
Do you know what I mean? Something funny. We still get like a big letter through every year that tells you how much is still left. On the still owed to Sony. Obviously,
you're joking.
Money, But they spent ridiculous money on stupid things for the band, like ridiculous things. You're making music videos that used to. None of that was their choice. They're making music videos, and I'm not even kidding you. We were like chauffeur driven, like 5 a.m. to massive sets to go and film, like Clean Up Your Eyes music video, 50 grand music videos, like actors and all that, and you're just like,
why?
Going to be successful, like put the money into something better, but just throw money away.
So so obviously you know your band, you know your music, you know you're a good live band and all that. So are they trying to commercialise you? Is that what they're trying to do? They're trying to commercialise you, to monetise you basically. But understandable, that's understandable. But it's just outrageous that they can hoard that and not let you go and make music, because I don't like saying it, Andy, but who knows where you could have went if they'd let you go to that contract and let you go with Elton John. Who knows where you could have ended up? Do you know what I mean? That must be something.
It definitely held us back for years. I can't remember how long it was, but it was years. It was like because basically, put it this way, we recorded demo-wise a full album, and then binned that, and then recorded another full album. That's how long it was. Like,
wow, that's crazy, man. So I'll take you kind of back to a wee bit of a Scottish memory for you. Tea in the Park, man. Like, it's obviously it isn't there anymore, but it's historical. It's everything Scottish music could ever want. What was that like? That must have been absolutely electrifying, man.
Every time we played it, it was just, it got better and better. So the first year we played was a tea break stage, and for anybody that remembers Tea in the Park, like tea break stage, I think it was maybe 1,000 capacity tent, and it was
what year
always
was that?
bouncing.
It was
maybe 2007.
It was
something like that.
Aye.
I'm bad with dates.
Aye.
Mate, I'm terrible with that. But I remember, so it was us and Paolo Nutini were like kind of just the same time coming out, but he'd released something and went huge. But he was all supposed to be playing tea break stage after us. But he was then bumped up onto like the main stage during the day or something. But he honoured his place.
Did he?
In the tea break time. So we played.
I think Fiona was there.
And there was like 10,000 people trying to get into a tent for 1,000 because of him. So it made it all the better for us. That was good. So that was the first year we played. And then the second year we played Pet Sounds Arena. Which was like 8,000 capacity tent, packed. Like, there was like one out, one in type of thing that we played. That was amazing. It was so...
Because obviously, good. I remember Fiona telling me a wee story. She got backstage back ways one year. Obviously, she went with Kim and all that. And so she backstage, and she says that Paolo Nutini was there, and he had a bottle of wine, and he was singing... I'm sure it was something for the Jungle Book or something. Like, he was singing...
He was standing inside the stage when we played the tea break one. That was the first time I'd ever met him. He was class.
Is he a nice guy? Aye.
Oh, brilliant.
Aye.
Lovely guy.
I love him. Oh, his music's amazing. It's absolutely phenomenal, his music. And he's a Scottish legend. But it's actually heartbreaking to hear that. I think it's like, the more I hear about it now, like, you see where it's just...
So we played the Pet Sounds that year. And then the year after that, we then played the Radio 1 NME stage, which is like the second biggest stage there. So that was like 36,000 people or something was there to see us that day. And that was like just another step up again.
Aye.
Like we made it to the live TV show thing and all that.
Aye.
And I remember the first song that we're going to play basically counts in with the drums. It's like a 4 count in the drums and the bass slides in with the piano and the song, and I slid in the wrong note. Just nerves, mate. And it was like, boom, just this big bum note, and everything in the band staring at me. And I'm like,
oh, no.
Fuck, man, that's live on telly.
I remember, like, obviously, because like, Fiona was there to kind of, with the journey, I know she was always there kind of ways. But so, Tina Park, where did you go for? I know you played. Was it Ullapool, or that was a big one?
Other festivals like in the UK.
Aye,
we played every festival in the UK apart from Glastonbury. It's the only one we never played really.
Is Glastonbury? Do you need to have made it to go to Glastonbury?
Aye, I think like, it's harder to get to get.
Obviously, you can't. People say it's like when you talk about Dykeenies, so many people remember it. So many people always say, but you did make it.
Aye.
You know what I mean? Like, it's where do you level the success? Obviously, like, he's maybe never made it where he could have, but he's were a huge band, man. He's were like really, really big. So obviously we're going to go into our butted in there. So you're obviously going to go and tell us about the other festivals. What other ones did you do then, Andy?
Well, every other Redden and Leeds.
Did you say Redden?
V Festival, things like that. I just basically, I mean, at the time, I'm trying to remember now. Because in festival season, you go from one to the next, and we played the ones in Ireland, Oxygen, which is like basically the same as Tina Park, and they alternate the days, I think, sort of like that. So like everybody gets a ferry over, and like, so that was the year that we went with the Fratellis. And they'd stop, the Fratellis were in a tour bus, and they stopped at a service station on the way to get the ferry.
Aye.
And I think it was Baz, the bass player, got off for a piss, and the bus wouldn't have been left him. And he had to get him a flight to Ireland the next day.
I know. I mean, obviously I don't know why Tina Park stopped. I've not got a clue, but it was pretty, you might actually be able to tell us. Do you know why Tina Park got stopped up in Ballado? Was it to do with the farmer and all that? Like,
I don't know. I honestly don't really know. Like, I don't know.
Because it was a magical. It was so good, man. Tina Park was unbelievable, and obviously I can't even imagine playing it, man. That just must have been.
I know.
So after obviously, is there anything obviously? Because obviously I'm not great with music, nor Andy. Is there anything else that I'm missing here that would have been really big to kind of talk about, or anything that you would like to kind of highlight?
There was a period after when we signed with the Elton John's management company, and I said things did take off for us after that. Again, they looked after as well. So like we would go down at Christmas time for these parties with Elton John.
Elton John, did you?
So it was like everybody that was signed to 21st Artists. So it was like James Blunt, Lily Allen, Elton John, obviously David Furnish, the AIDS Foundation at the time was all there. Some massive artists, Sophie Ellis Bextor. Man, it was mental. So we went to these meals, and you were in with all them, like Elton John. I was walking down to the toilet, and one of the things that Elton John was walking up, and we'd met him a few times, and he came up to me and he grabbed me by the face, and he's like, "We're just part of the family." Things like that.
Crazy.
He's like back now. I've got Christmas cards for Elton John, like my brothers, like. It's mad. You could tell people that, they would just be like, "Oh, fuck off."
I know.
I'm just a guy who lays bricks for a living. But I was at dinner with Elton John, and he sat down next to me, and he ate my brother's pudding because he was away at the toilet, and Elton John sat down, the pudding got delivered, and he was all started eating it. He was telling us how the night before that he had gave Alex Ferguson a lift from Manchester in his private jet to London.
Just
massive football fan, talking about football and all that. Like,
is Elton John a big football fan, is he?
Well, aye, because he used to own, was it Watford or something like that?
Oh, that's right.
He's a huge football fan, aye.
That's right. you just don't put Elton John and football together like in my head there. But I know I definitely have seen stuff where he's talking about football. So do you miss it?
I miss the creative side of writing with my brothers in the recording process, and then you having that finished article, something that you've.
Aye.
And you can be really proud of something that you've got. But I don't miss the touring side and all that. I've done it. It was good then. You're a young guy and all that. But I need to be in my bed for 9 at night now. Showtime, it's bedtime.
I know. No, it's obviously because you don't realise like the actual blood, sweat, and tears that go into touring, didn't you know? And away from your family and.
Aye.
And obviously, did it have restraints on like your relationships and stuff like that?
I mean, obviously, I couldn't speak for anybody else in the band, but like, aye, definitely. You're a young man, you're away in tour, and like, there's lassies everywhere, and I wasn't faithful.
Aye.
I wasn't faithful to any of my girlfriends at the time. I'm not proud of it now, you look back on it, but it was a long time ago now, and I was a young man.
Aye.
It definitely put a lot of strain in your relationships, and you don't grow up.
But as you say, you're not actually you, and at that point, if that makes sense, you're you.
No,
but
I think I know what you mean. Like you start to become this character that's in the band. That's just this guy for the band. When it's just like I said earlier, it's just all bullshit, really.
Aye, and what age were you, do you think, Andy, when you actually went, this is fucking no fun me, man? Like I don't. When did you realise? Because me and you were both talking about. The acceptance of your reality and trying to accept, and obviously you've done that, and we're going to talk about some of the stuff you're doing now and the discipline and with the MMA and stuff that you've got now and stuff. But when was the point that you went realistically, I need to gear this up now, like you see that it's no good for my mental health, it's no good for this what age were you?
So I'm 40 now, so it was in 2017, so maybe been about 35, 36. We were recording the band. The band had basically broke up. We had split up and stuff like that. Then we decided we were going to go back together again. We were going to write, see what happened, see how we felt about it. And we started writing together again, and the songs were good. Like, we never lost that. So we wrote this bunch of songs, and we went and recorded with a really good producer, a guy that we knew called Bruce Rintoul from Glasgow. Great guy, great musician. He was in some really good bands at the same time as us. And he put a slightly different edge on the band, made us a bit rockier, the recording and production side there. And we were really pleased with the stuff we came away with, the songs, really proud of it. And we just released it as an EP. Dave McGeechan again for King Tut, he and DF. We had a meeting with Dave, and Dave was like, songs are great, let's put on a Tut show, King Tut show, we'll test the water and see if the fan base is still there. You've been away for like 5 years or whatever it was. So we're like, right, cool. So they put a Tut show on sale, and it sold out in seconds, mate. And I remember me and Alan were at work at the time, and it was a Friday morning, the tickets went on sale, so we were eagerly waiting to find out what was happened. And before we knew it, we got a phone call. So it sold out, like, straight away. So they fired a second show on sale. So this is the Friday. They fired the Saturday on sale, like, sold out, mate.
Rapid.
Right, so then it's like, right, we're going to put the Sunday on sale, but we're going to need to hold tickets back for your family and that, because nobody's managed to get tickets. They all sold out in like 7 minutes, under 7 minutes, the 3 shows. So that was like an indication for us. We were like, fuck.
Aye, definitely.
Aye, so still, and then those shows were great. So we put on like a tour. Tour was brilliant. But I think we'd all just moved on a wee bit in life. Musically, you're never going to move on for that.
I know.
You're never going to move on for the music side of it. But we all had families. We were all settled in there. We all had jobs.
Aye.
It's different. That's when we knew. And
was there any element of people just maybe at different wavelengths on, like, maybe mental health, going, I don't want to go down this road again, and maybe different elements, say, kind of just the remembering how it felt before, and maybe just the warning signs going, I don't know if I could go through that again?
Probably Brian would have probably been, because he was the one that was like, look,
I know,
let's be honest with ourselves here, guys. Like,
I know a lot. Like obviously, I've only met Brian a couple of times. I love being in his company. He's a absolutely great guy, and I know he's got his problems. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody else. Do you know what I mean? Everybody else has got their problems. But I think when you've got that kind of, as we spoke about earlier, that gift that sometimes comes hand in hand with that kind of like mental health kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know. I'm trying to kind of just get to where that level of acceptance. Where was it Brian that kind of said?
Ultimately it was Brian that put the nail in the coffin. But I mean, I think we all understood. We were on the same page. He was just the man that said it. I knew for years watching Brian on stage and after gigs, I knew that every single time we played, it was taking something away from Brian's soul.
Aye.
Although Brian was a great performer and great live and stuff like that, like you could tell it was doing something to him.
Aye.
Hard to explain, but I could see it was chipping away at him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and he's happier now.
Aye, and we've had like Andy McLaren on here, football player, like ex-football player. We've had David Heyman on here. We've had or like a manner, like people who have had relatively huge success at some point in their life, and all of them kind of are happier now, just with nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like not with nothing. They've got everything. That's what the thing. Like you say nothing, but they're happy with what they've got.
Anymore,
Aye, do you know what I mean? And I mean, Andy's a brilliant pal of mine. Do you know what I mean? I love Andy, and he's been really good with us with a lot of stuff. But he talks about like in the football, and it's the exact same story, kind of. If you know what I mean, it's like hitting the heights, agents, young age, took away at 16, and then just left, and you're like, what else have I got here? So you turn to drink, you turn to drug. It's always the same story, and I think that's because you're it might be a bit deep, but I don't really think that you're supposed to kind of have all that big fame, and I think that just builds you up to something that you're just ultimately going to get broke down with. Do you know what I mean? You look at Hollywood and that now, and you look at all these places that are absolutely rife with people mental health.
That's it. Like it is just all bullshit in essence, really. Aye. It really is. Like you say, once it's all done and dusted and it's all gone, it means fuck all. It means nothing. Do you know, like when I was young, you had heroes and you had people that you looked up to, maybe like famous people. Like, you know, I loved the Beatles or I loved Oasis and all that kind of stuff. And now, as a 40-year-old guy, my heroes are other people that I know. Aye. You know, like I've got like people for Cumbernauld that I think about every single day that shape how I try and be as a man. And they will have no idea that I even think this of them, right? But like, particularly I've got a friend for Cumbernauld who lost his wife last year, same age as me, and he's got a young son, and this guy is just an incredible guy, incredible father to his wee boy. Like, to me, that's my hero now. You know, so like these big things, fame and what I used to look, when I was younger in the band, don't mean fuck all. Like,
it's fake, isn't it? It's like, you see these, I mean, obviously we're doing the podcast and you see these fucking mad influencers, and obviously you try and get guests, do you know what I mean? So you try and get guests who are maybe got a wee bit of influence and stuff like that at times, and some of these guys they've got a good build and they maybe can talk a wee bit well, and they're just talking shite, but you're like, how much do you want to come on the podcast? Like, and it's about 10 grand and all that. That's fun, and you're like, fucking hell, mate. Like, we're a wee podcast that just started up, and you're like asking for 10 grand. You know what I mean? Like,
doing everything for the wrong reasons, aren't they? That's really.
And they're going to just come to a fall at some point, Andy. And I think the ultimate thing in life, and I go back, it's obviously quite spiritual, but the Buddha says the ultimate thing: you have got no other. There should be no other thing in you except chasing happiness and contentness and joy. And I think once I'm certainly nowhere near that. I would never class myself as a happy, joyful person, but I'm certainly much better than I have been in the past, especially like when I was in prison and stuff. But it's like, you look at like Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston. I mean, you could just rhyme off so many names. and you go, on the background, on the face of it, they're this, like, amazing people that have got these amazing, but they're so badly damaged in the background.
You wouldn't have wanted their lives.
No.
That's the thing. Like, you look at them, and it's a shame, really. Like, no one would want to live that life, and we'd all end up the way they ended up living that life. Do
you think that is what's happening as well? They're just getting prepped up. Even the big bands are just getting prepped up by these record companies and just getting, like, as you were talking about earlier with the View and stuff, like, just getting their drugs, getting their doctors, everything's all there.
Aye, definitely.
Aye, so that happens.
100%. Aye.
Because you go, like, I say, why would these people? Why, like Whitney Houston? Why? And it's so rife. It's like the addiction, mental health, and then a lot of people come away from fame and take a step back, and that's when they find contentment. That's when they find their contentness. So kind of moving on a wee bit for the music, right? Where did you go after the music, Andy? Where did life take you then?
I had a real shit few years after the band had finally broke up. Like, just really struggling to find myself and find my passion in life. I had to find another calling, something else I could really get into, and not even just another hobby. I'm the type of person that I'm no normal in terms of I don't just live a normal life, and I always need to be working hard at something and achieving something that's just like, it's hardwired into me.
Aye.
So for those few years I was doing nothing, and I was just probably wasn't in a very good mental place or anything like that. But then I found jiu-jitsu, obviously, and the reason I wanted to do that particular thing was obviously I liked the UFC, you know, that, and that was my connection to it. I had a couple of pals that did jiu-jitsu and wrestled, and they used to always say to me, you know, you need to try it. It's like, it will change your life and all this. And I eventually did try it. I went and did a beginner's course at the Scottish Hit Squad over on Coatbridge and hooked straight away. And it was this element of, you're on your own doing this. I'd always been in a band with my brothers. Everything was always together. You were on your own in this. And there's a saying in jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. It said, the mats don't lie. You only get back what you put in. There's no faking it in this.
Aye.
You know, you need to fucking work hard if you want to be good at this, you know. Like, it's one of the hardest sports to start enjoying, because as a relatively new person, you're at white belt stage, you're just going to get smashed and smashed and smashed. That's what happens.
You're just going to take it.
The people with the big egos will walk away, and they'll never progress because it's too difficult for them. So that's why I look at all my friends in jiu-jitsu and all the guys that made it to blue belt and above that, and I've got a massive respect for them, because I know what they went through to get there. Like, I know how hard that was.
Aye. Because you watch, obviously I'm a UFC fan myself. I've watched the UFC, and you see, like, and some of the jiu-jitsu boys aren't great to watch. Do you know what I mean? But it's by far, every one of them will tell you it's the ultimate kind of thing you need now. Do you know what I mean? If you go into MMA with any kind of jiu-jitsu,
it's not the most exciting sport to watch, and the problem is it used to be even worse, right? They're trying to make it better now with different rule sets. There's a company called ADCC, which I had just competed in not long ago. It's the biggest promotion for jiu-jitsu and grappling in the world. They're changing the rule sets to make it more appealing to people that don't compete in it. There's a lot of it you'll not understand when you're watching it, and I get that. It can be really boring. It can be. Even sometimes I'm watching it and I'm like, it was just way too boring, you know, like, stand them up, man, make them fight a bit.
It's an art form, isn't it?
Definitely. It's physical chess, basically. That's basically what it is. It's you're forcing somebody else into making a mistake that you can capitalise on, and the better you get, and I'm only a blue belt, I'm way at the beginner stage as in terms of jiu-jitsu. Like, you start to lay traps for different submissions or different things, like sweeps and all that, and it's beautiful, mate.
So do you get an enjoyment out of kind of watching, like, UFC then? Would you, like, obviously Khabib and all that, like, you would probably say he's I don't know, people say he's one of the best kind of grapplers. So would you, I like watching Khabib, I like John Jones and I like Ngannou and stuff, do you know what I mean? But would you can you watch that and see the art form in that when he's kind of...
Aye, definitely. But still, when I watch the UFC, I'd rather see somebody get knocked out. I've still got that caveman about me. Come on. But I do watch a lot of grappling, and I do enjoy the grapplers. Like in the UFC, obviously we've got Big Paul Craig, who is the most dangerous grappler in the UFC roster. 100%. I mean, the guy. I'm good friends with Paul. And I've actually talked to one of my training partners before I came in here about Paul, and we were saying the amount of times that guy's nearly caused us a heart attack because Paul was taking downs for 15 minutes solid and then whipped a submission at the bag in the last second. And he's beat people that's their only loss. He's beat the Jamal Hill. He dislocated his shoulder, broke his arm. That guy never been beat before. He was supposed to beat Paul.
That would make it happen.
That was never. Then he went on to be the champion. And he beat a big guy called Ankalaev, who never been beat. He beat Paul up for 15 minutes straight, and in the last 4 seconds of the fight, Paul throws up a triangle and submits the guy. It seems to be his thing. It's just oh, stop doing this.
Something people into the last 4 seconds.
But that's jiu-jitsu, man. It's such a dangerous sport. Like,
I know. Even
at my level, competing 3 months ago at ADCC, and I got put in a submission which is called a heel hook, and I've came away with it kind of lucky, to be honest with you, because usually what it does is it blows your knee up. Like your MCL, your ACL, everything's destroyed in your knee. But it was my ankle that got most of it. Completely turned my ankle the opposite way, ripped everything in it. I've still not been back at training since. I'm just starting to make a bit of recovery on it, but that's how.
I know, because I was talking to you about coming on here. It just kind of happened, and so obviously, see, like while that's happened, did your mental health drop again when you're So it's there's obviously a recurring theme there, isn't there? When you're no doing something, Andy, you're no like committed into something that, and it's not your fault. None of it's been your fault, if you know what I mean. Really. Well,
I had an interesting conversation with a guy that he trains with sometimes, and I'm pals him on social media and that, but he's a really smart guy and really philosophical. And we were having a chat on Instagram, and he said to me, be careful, you're no masking other stuff with training, because I was struggling with it training. My mental health had took a big dip, and it made me think about it, and it's made me address and sort of dig deep to find the issues and start addressing things properly, which I have been doing, because jiu-jitsu won't always be there. I might be injured, there might be periods in my life I won't be, family life will take up my time, and I'll not be competing. So I can't have these demons knocking at the door. So that conversation I had with this particular guy made me think a lot about that.
I think what people get wrong is that addiction comes in many forms. You mention addiction, people automatically go to
drugs,
drink. And obviously you've not had the drug side, Andy, but you've had gambling, you've had alcohol, and by the sounds that you maybe had a wee bit of the addiction to the gym as well, do you know what I mean, with the jiu-jitsu. So one of my, I don't think I've done a podcast with mentioning him, do you know what I mean, but Gabor Mate, he just says that any kind of thing that you do to an extent that it causes harm, but you can't stop doing it, as an addiction, and you're always masking something. So, I mean, obviously your demons cut. Is it for the band? Is it still that kind of? Are you addressing that now and going, no, I know it's maybe something else, or like?
I think delving really deep into it, I think mostly it comes from my childhood, and then the band, things that happened with the band never helped matters. Like my own father, basically my real father, who passed away 5 years ago now, but he was kind of like in and out my life, in and out my life all growing up, and it's even hard for like my parents. Like my stepdad is my dad, right?
Parents are lovely.
But it's hard for my parents to even understand the damage that left on me, because they'd be like, but you never missed out, and I know. They've done everything for me, like I've never missed out in my life. But that's not the point.
No.
It's like I never had the same stability with my real father as I should have had. And then you're a kid, you don't understand, you know. Totally. I don't know why he's left. I don't know why he doesn't come and see me. I don't know why some weekends he's not turned up to pick me and my brother up. And I mean, that definitely left a lot of damage on me.
Massive.
Definitely. Insecurities through my whole life.
You can never ever underplay adverse childhood experience. I mean, we had a guy, I call him the Scottish Gabber Matty, James Docherty, who knows trauma inside out, and trauma goes hand in hand with AC. It's called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and abandonment is massive. And I think a lot of people, and obviously I know your man, and your man's an absolutely beautiful person, do you know what I mean? But she will probably not be seen. She's just seen it for, like, I gave you everything, but it's got nothing to do with them. It's your connection to your dad that you can't understand why he's no wanting to be part of your life. Like, it's as a wee guy, you're like, what is it? Is it something I'm doing? So you're probably trying to do stuff, even maybe subconsciously, to try and get him to recognise you, if that makes sense. And
it ended up a kind of trait that I still kind of possess, to be honest with you, of like, see, with people that don't show me attention, I then try and battle for their attention. And it's a subconscious thing. And sometimes I recognise myself doing it. But that's obviously where it's come from. But then he died. I'd tried to, all through my life, you know, I'd contact sometimes, and then sometimes he wouldn't bother. But then he moved away to England, and he'd float in and out my life, same my brother. But then he seemed to settle a wee bit, and we had a wee bit of a better relationship, and then he died. But in my head, I always thought we would sort things out, you know. You always think time's on your side, and it's really no. Because you don't know. But it's going to happen to any of us, and I should have addressed it before that. And then when he died, that opened up a whole new can of worms, because then I had this, I never made my peace with him. And then I felt guilt for a long time after he passed away, because I felt like I should have let him know that it's all right, it's okay. Like, I knew he felt guilty about my childhood and how things were with. And then, you know, I kind of beat myself up for a long time because I never done anything about it. And I know now it's not my fault.
No, not at all.
It's like, that was probably part of my grief as well.
I think when you've got that kind of relationship and it's somebody floating in and out your life that should be there, it's never your fault, do you know what I mean? Like, you can never ever take, but you will take blame, like, as a child, and then it's very hard to, because as a child you're like a sponge, you take everything in, so you'll have been subconsciously taking in that your dad didn't want you, do you know what I mean? That's subconsciously what you're thinking, do you know what I mean? And it's a testament to yourself and your family that you're the man you are, because I know a lot of people who are ball deep in addiction, drug, and it's abandonment issues and stuff like that. We spoke about it earlier again, as we say, about acceptance and accepting reality as it is. And it's very hard to do. And if you can increase your awareness to a level where you can go, I can't change that, there's nothing I can do, you're actually doing amazing, because a lot of people can't reach that stage, Andy.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? So I think it's a testament to you and your family that you're the man you're the day. So obviously,
one thing I would just add to that. So I don't call him my stepdad, he's my dad, Brian, as you know, Brian. Me and Alan have been completely lucky that we had him in our lives. He filled any void that was ever left for him, even to the point where we're all bricklayers. For him, he's a bricklayer. He was, you know, like, so that's probably what kept things on an even kind of keel for us, you know. Like, I think if he wasn't in our lives, if we never had that family stability, he worked hard when we were younger. Like, he's a bricklayer, and he worked super hard. We would go on holidays every year. Gave us everything that we ever needed, you know. So we're super lucky that we had that. No, yeah, it's like, you know, as you say, you've had wee blips and you've had wee bit, nothing like I've seen damage when people don't have fathers, do you know what I mean? And it's certainly no anything close to what you're experiencing, but you still get it, it's still there, it's impossible not to feel, do you know what I mean? And it's never a diss on anybody, do you know what I mean? But
we can do that. We can easily revert to blaming ourselves and all that. I mean, I like some of the shit I've been through, like, fucking hell, it's like I don't know, you're just like, yeah, actually go like that. Why am I like beating myself up like this? Do you know what I mean? You would, if it was like somebody else was talking to you the way that you talk to yourself, you'd be like, fuck off, do you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't have them in your life, do you know what I mean? You'd be like, that bastard miles away from me, man. But we do that, we keep that in our head and we do play it, our own kind of thingies, and it is just trying to get that. And I've said it before, that level of acceptance is a massive step in that direction. And it's, yeah, I don't think anybody's ever the finished article. I don't, me personally, I think everybody's always still.
I think if you think you're the finished article, there's something wrong.
Aye.
You should always be striving for better. And
definitely.
Just,
even Jesus and that fucking strive to be better, didn't they? Jesus and the Buddha and all that. These are these people. So when's your next? When are you going to be back at training then? When are you going to be back? So
I've still been keeping myself active, fit, lifting weights, all that. I'll be looking to get back into training jiu-jitsu after Christmas, hopefully in the new year. The reason I took so long off was that I didn't want to go back and then it make it even worse again, because this is a bad injury. This is a bad one. And I can't afford that injury to affect my employment, my work either. I'm self-employed, obviously. So I had to be smart about it. Next year, I'm hoping for a big year in terms of competition-wise. I want to go, obviously, I'm 40, be 41 in March coming. I'm competing against a lot of younger guys, right? Mm-hmm. But I can go into categories in competitions that are older for Masters, they call it. I want to go and do the Masters at the Euros next year.
Aye.
Really test myself. So if I can get the ball rolling with training after Christmas and the New Year, that's my focus. That's going to be my aim.
Well, I would love to come and see you if you're doing that and give us a shout. That'd be brilliant. I'd love to come and see you, and I'll definitely be wanting to come and see one of your fights soon anyway. So just as we're kind of coming up to the end, a big question for you here, right? I'll put you on the spot here. What's more nerve-wracking, going into the ring, going into the octagon, or going into the going live on T in the Park or at King Tut? What's more nerve-wracking?
Good question. Wow. I think the walking out and you're going to fight somebody.
Aye.
And it's not because you think you're going to get hurt or anything like that. It's you don't want to get beat in front of your pals. That's what it is. Like, it's just you.
Aye.
And it's just you. I think that's worse, definitely. Aye. I mean, at ADCC, I done 2 big matches back to back. One weekend, Wolverhampton, a thing called Northern Submission Series, which is a guy called Cal Eleanor puts that show on. Amazing big show. I fought one of his guys in Wolverhampton the week before, and we had a great match, great fight, and I won that one. The week later, I came up against arguably one of the best blue belts in the UK, the new boy called Mitch Oley. And we knew his strong points. We knew what he was good at. We knew the leg lock game was going to be a dangerous thing for me. And nobody really wanted to go up against this boy. Don't care what they say. People say, I never got offered that matchup. I know other people did, and they all said no. I wasn't the first choice. They've came to me and I've said aye, because I wouldn't have turned down Andy. But it was a big step up for me, getting him.
Did you feel it? Like the big step up?
When I walked out that night at ADCC, I didn't feel like I was out of place. I knew that there was elements in my game that were stronger than his game, and there was elements of his game that were stronger than mine. And I knew that where I had to get him, and it was millimetres in it, you know. Aye. I was almost where I wanted to be. Aye. Until I wasn't there.
Millimetres of difference, but in that sport, isn't it?
And it was like that. You heard it rip, and that's it. He done what he's good at. Aye. Fair play to him.
Aye, I know you. That's, next time, do you know that's the well, just as we're finishing up, just what you said there, right? Fair play. It's amazing to see fighters, and it's more MMA because boxing, a lot of shite talk and I'm not saying you get it at the high end of UFC as well, but just to hear you even saying that and having that respect for that guy who's hurt you. Do you know what I mean? And he's not meant to do that to you. Do you know what I mean? He's meant to get you in a thing. But just to have that respect for somebody what would you, like, obviously, like, I'm a big supporter of, like, young boys and stuff going into that sport, and people would go, oh, what, you're teaching boys to fight and all that, and boys that are on the street and stuff like that. Do you think it would be worthwhile for, like, a government programme to maybe start looking at young boys that are offending and stuff like that, to maybe look into going into martial arts? Would you say that would be something that would could take?
Definitely. I think that it should be in schools. I think what it teaches you is priceless. Like, a young man, if I had a son, I'll do the same with my girls. I have the opportunity to train as well. But particularly for young men, teenagers, young boys, if you've got confidence within yourself and your physical capabilities, you're not going to be afraid when you're walking down the street, but you're also not going to feel the need to prove yourself. And when you're a teenager, no, those daft wee fights you get in was all about proving yourself. Mm-hmm. See, when you know you don't need to prove yourself. I know 15-year-old boys that wrap me up, mm-hmm. and they'll be the best behaved boys in school.
Aye.
And they'll walk away for a fight. Mm-hmm. And they're confident in themselves to do that. It squashes your ego. It teaches you discipline, your mental clarity, your mental health, and your physical performance. Like, I'm fitter than I've ever been.
Aye.
You've seen the shape of
I know.
Like that.
We'll try and get a couple of photos up for you.
That's all for training. There's nothing bad comes from it.
Aye.
People have this thing where they think it's bad, you know, fighting, or the UFC, that's terrible, it's in a cage and all that kind of stuff, you know. It's like some of the smartest, most intelligent people in there, mm-hmm. and they've put their whole life and soul into learning an art form. Mm-hmm. It's not barbaric. It's not.
No. And I think when you look at barbaric and it's on the streets and guys have got whatever weapons and stuff like that and they're used in gang fights, they're involved in this, taking that away and being able to train in a gym with a guy that you can watch, and it's teaching you, it's grounding you, it's teaching you. I mean, look at Mike Tyson and stuff like that, and I know that was like custom battle with him and stuff, but you see stories like that quite a lot where guys have been took by somebody who's just exceptionally gifted at presenting themselves to young people. Because it's a hard thing to present yourself to a young person and tell them what to do.
Connect with them.
Aye, and connect. So these guys are masters at that. Do you know what I mean? Because you see it all the time. Like, as you say, the young boys that are all in there, they're no involved in gangs, they're no street partying and doing this. Do you know what I mean? So it's something that I would always say, and I don't even think anybody's ever looked at it, to be honest, to go, should we be some sort of programme where, and I think people would kick off. You'd have the usual media outlets going, you're teaching them a sport, these dangerous youngsters are.
I know, which is mad, because like, even when it comes down to the social aspect to it, all these young guys and young girls that I train with, like, hardly even drink alcohol.
Aye.
Definitely don't touch drugs.
Aye.
You know, these people like live for that. They're healthy people. They look after their bodies.
Aye. And just one wee last bit, because you might have a wee bit of knowledge, just something that I'm probably more interested, to be honest, but looking at the UFC and all that, and you've got talk about steroids and all that, right? And I've heard Nate Diaz a lot calling out people and saying, like, they're using steroids and it, blah, blah. Do you think that, is there a problem in the kind of that world where?
Nah.
I
think it's a scapegoat for a lot of people to say somebody's in steroids. That guy beat me just because he was just like, I beat you because he's better skills. Like, I could prove that in terms of, like, you could get a 70-kilo guy would smoke a 90-kilo bodybuilder, 100-kilo bodybuilder.
Aye.
Muscles don't win you fights.
No. And that Hoist Gracie, you can go and watch his first fights and see that.
Aye.
But no, listen, is there anything else you'd like to, I'll just give the last kind of thing to you, Andy. Like, what I always kind of try and do is, obviously this is trying to always put out a positive message. So see, for anybody, you've been at the heights of music, you've been to places that a lot of us would have dreamt of. What would you say to anybody that's kind of out there struggling, maybe with their own mental health, can kind of pick reality? What would you say to somebody that's kind of struggling out there?
Is family, if you're struggling, if your mental health dipped, or if you're just finding it a tough time, like, family is the way forward. Like, seek medical help, obviously, like ever good, but stay close to your family. Like, it's the most soothing thing for Andy's soul. If you've got a good support network around about you and your family, like, you know, my family's like with me and my sister and that, like, it's irreplaceable.
Aye. No. Well, listen, Andy, brilliant to have you here on Social Sessions, man, and hopefully maybe get you again, and we'll keep people up to date with your fights and stuff like that.
Love it, mate.
Brilliant. Right, thank you, mate.
Much.